Hello and welcome to this week's video. If you've ever finished an oil painting and thought, why does this feel overworked? Even though you've spent hours on the detail, this video is for you. A lot of paintings don't fail because of bad colour or bad drawing. They fall apart because the artist loses control of the big shapes versus small shapes. Most of us jump straight into the small stuff without respecting shape hierarchy. Big shapes hold the painting together. Small shapes live inside those big shapes. Overworking those small shapes is one of the fastest ways to kill a painting. In today's video, I'm going to show you the importance of shape hierarchy and use this recent dog commission to illustrate my points. Let's get started. Number 1, big shapes. So what do I mean by big shapes? Big shapes are the large, simple masses of value and colour that organise the entire painting. If you squint at your subject and most of the details disappear, whatever is left, that's your big shapes. This is my reference photo. Just a note, I have painted over the background in Photoshop as the dog was sat on a wooden floor. I wanted colour contrast between the dog and the floor, so I changed it. If I do a squint effect on this photo, look at what happens to the detail. These are my big shapes. If I turn it into black and white, these are my main values within my shapes. Therefore, these shapes are doing the heavy lifting. They establish the structure and readability of the painting long before I put in any detail. If you get these wrong, no amount of detail will save your painting. So you must keep these big shapes in mind when you are painting. Number 2, small shapes. Once those big shapes are in place, that's where the small shapes come in. But this is where a lot of painters trip up. Small shapes don't exist on their own. They always live inside a bigger shape. Forgetting this hierarchy is when the problem begins to start. For example, fur is part of the body and head mass, not a bunch of individual strands. Painting them as such can lead to an overworked dog painting. Number 3, common mistakes. This is usually where overworking starts. Once painters begin adding small shapes, it's tempting to keep refining them, sharpening edges, increasing contrast, adding more and more information. But every time you do that, you're quietly chipping away at the strength of the big shape underneath. Too many small shapes with high contrast or high edges start competing for attention, and the painting begins to look off. One of the most common mistakes is treating every small shape as equally important. If your big shapes are incorrect, adding detail to them will not solve this problem. It only exaggerates it. When a painting feels messy or overworked, it's almost always a sign that either the big shapes were not resolved in the first place, or the artist has overworked the small shapes. In this instance, the only solution is to go back in and re-establish those big shapes again. Looking at my reference photo again, the main way I am going to be able to create that sense of form is with some obvious temperature shifts using blue and orange as my complementary pairings. As my values are quite similar, the easiest way to paint this is to establish the anchor points of the eyes and nose first, and then try and bridge across to them. Let's have a look at my palette and the colours I used. These were cadmium yellow light, yellow ochre light, transparent yellow oxide, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, transparent red oxide, ultramarine deep, cerulean blue, and titanium zinc white. I have also mixed up a few other colours. These were a red black and a green black. These two colours mixed together give me my rich black that can easily be pushed warm or cool depending upon what I see. I've also mixed up a red, purple, 3 oranges and another green. As I will be working with the complementary colours of orange and blue, I need as many combinations as possible to get all those neutral mixes, as we have some really saturated warms and some more muted warms. Also, my cooler areas shift between these two blues. Remember, mixing two complementary colours together will give us our brown, so orange and blue equals brown. Adding white will give us our greys, so orange plus blue plus white equals grey. First of all, I established that background. This is just a mix of ultramarine plus white. I then add this orange in varying amounts to give a broken colour effect. For my really saturated areas, I use this orange plus my red black plus cadmium yellow light. For my slightly more muted brown orange areas, I use this orange plus white. Where the brown has a more reddish undertone, I add a little black red and a small amount of green to this mix. For my cooler areas, I start with white and mix in a little of this orange plus some of this blue. Notice the blue around the nose changes to my ultramarine deep and also a little around the eyes. For the nose and the eyes, I use my rich black mixed together and push it either blue or red depending upon what I see. For the lighter areas, I add cadmium yellow and a small amount of white to this mix. As my values are all very similar, the easiest way to paint this is to start off with the obvious areas first. The ears, the eyes, nose and the areas of dark value around the side of the face. This darker area down the nose is also very prominent too. I need to make sure that when dealing with this colour shift, I do not overemphasise the small temperature shifts I see, especially around this eye. Remember, the value is the same. The only thing that changes is my temperature. Working alla prima will make this easier because you can pull and push your edges around as well as paint wet on top of wet. Number 3, edges. Edges are one of the simplest but most powerful tools for keeping a painting readable. Big shapes usually benefit from softer, more blended edges, while small shapes can have sharper edges but only selectively. If every small shape is crisp and clearly defined, the painting quickly becomes noisy, flat and overworked. The big shapes lose their visual authority and the eye doesn't know where to rest. Think of big shapes as the backbone of your painting. They need breathing room. Small shapes, on the other hand, are like accents or punctuation. They draw attention, add interest and create texture, but they only work when the big shapes are strong and clear underneath. A good way to see how sharp your edges should be is to squint at your painting. If you can see them clearly, you will know that you need a harder edge. If they are less clear, you will know that the edges need to be painted either softly or lost. Remember, laying wet paint on top of wet paint can be tricky, so use a soft, longer brush. I like these flat ones by Artmaster as they have a little bit of firmness, but you can be quite expressive with them too. Number 4 suggests the detail. One of the things that separates a strong painting from a busy or overworked one is the suggestion of detail. You don't need to paint every individual hair. A few well-placed strokes will do the job. As long as the big shapes are correctly painted, the viewer's brain will fill in the rest. This approach keeps the painting fresh and alive because the eye isn't overwhelmed by competing details. In essence, suggestion over description is another way of respecting shape hierarchy. Small shapes enhance the big shapes rather than fight them for attention. Notice how little detail there is in my small shapes. Establishing my shapes through my colour shifts was the important element of this painting. To sum up then, here is a simple rule of thumb. Solve big shapes first. Small shapes should never be louder than the big shapes they live in. If this happens, re-establish your big shapes and have another go. If your painting reads well when you squint, you're winning. If you would like to come and paint with me, join my workshop on the 3rd of July. You'll find the link in the description below. There are also more details of lesson opportunities on my website, Sarah Halliday Art. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss future painting tips. Thank you for watching and see you for the next one.